Chair Edwards, I am ready.
Okay, thank you. We're going to start the meeting. I'd like to call to order regular meeting Board of Directors, Monterey Peninsula Water Management District, Monday, July 2020 at 6:00 p.m. May we have roll call, please?
Yes. Director Adams.
Present.
Director Byrne.
Yes.
Director Evans.
Present.
Director Potter.
Here.
Director Riley. Let me unmute Director Riley.
Here.
Director Riley.
Here.
Director Edwards.
Here.
And Director Hoffman. Director Hoffman.
Here.
Excellent. All present.
Thank you. And I've seen all these smiling faces except Director Potter. All right. Could we all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance of the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which we stand, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Chair Edwards, this is Director Evans. Before we begin, may we have a moment of silence for Mayor Ralph Rubio? Passed away yesterday.
Yes, we can.
So sorry.
I want to close the meeting in their behalf of him and Mayor Gunther. I'm glad you're on top of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any additions and corrections to the agenda?
No, there are none.
There are none. All right.
Move to approve. Director Byrne, move to approve.
Second.
Chair
Okay.
Edwards.
Approval?
Chair Edwards.
Yes.
I would just like to remind the directors that I did send out today a revised set of minutes for the June 15th board meeting.
I would include the revisions in my motion.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Let's do oral communication.
Mr. Edwards, Mr. Edwards, all votes need to be by roll call.
Yes. All that is on consent. Can we do oral communication and then we'll do consent calendar?
Was the motion to accept the agenda or to accept the consent calendar? I am unclear.
No, the agenda. Jeez. It was for the agenda.
Okay. I'll stand corrected. We'll do a roll call vote to accept the agenda.
Director Riley,
Yes.
Director Evans,
Aye.
Director Hoffman,
Yes.
Can't hear you, Arlene.
Director Adams,
Aye.
Director Potter,
Aye.
Director Byrne,
Yes.
Director Edwards.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0 to accept the agenda.
Thank you. Keep me on track. Oral communication. Anyone wish to address the board on consent calendar, information item, closed session item, or matters not listed on the agenda may do so only during oral communications. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. The public may comment on all other agenda items at the time they are presented to the board. Oral communications are now open.
Director Edwards, I see no raised hands.
Well, thank you. Moving along. Consent calendar. Anyone wish to pull anything off the consent calendar?
Arlene, I can barely hear everybody and my sound is all the way up.
That's not something that I can control on this end, Director. I'm sorry that I can't change that for you.
Okay, because the sound on mine is all the way up. So I don't know. All right.
Okay. Anyone on the board want to pull anything from consent calendar? If not,
Edwards,
yes.
this is Director Hoffman. I'd like to pull consent calendar item number 3, please.
Consent calendar item number 3. All right. Anyone else? Any other board member? Anyone in the public would like to pull anything from the consent calendar?
I see no raised hands, Director.
Thank you.
Chair Edwards, this is Director Evans. I'd like to move approval of the balance of the consent calendar with the addition of the revised minutes.
So
Director Burns, second.
Okay. Motion made by Director Director Evans, and second by Director Adams. I heard her get in there before you there, Vice Chair. Okay, roll call vote, please.
Director Byrne, Director Byrne,
Yes.
Director Riley,
Yes.
Director Hoffman,
Yes.
Director Potter,
Aye.
Director Edwards.
Aye, I can see you, Director Potter. Welcome.
I've been here the whole time, Alvin. Just lurking
I
in the shadows.
That's the first time I seen your picture. Okay,
Director Evans,
Aye.
and Director Adams.
aye.
Consent calendar approved 7-0.
thank you. Approval 7-0. Director Hoffman, what do you have on item number 3? What do you want to talk about?
Just some clarification, Chair. My notes from the closed session on June 15th, I had no reference to any discussion about hiring consultants to do additional SQL work as it relates to taking over the SQL process from.
Chair Edwards, I can't hear what Director Hoffman is saying.
Okay. Can you talk up a little bit, Director Hoffman?
Sure. Is everybody having difficulty?
No, I can hear you loud and clear.
Me too.
Mr. Chair, may I offer that if Director Byrne cannot adjust the volume, that she may have as an alternative to call in?
Okay, thank you. Vice Chair, you want to try calling in?
Well, I could hear pretty much everybody except Director Hoffman.
Okay,
I think if everybody's speaking directly into the microphone, it works.
all right, everyone, let's try to speak directly in the microphone. I know you're not as loud as me.
Sorry
Okay,
about that.
that's all right. Director Hoffman, you want to try again?
Sure. I'll start yelling. My notes from the closed session did not indicate that the board took any action to direct staff to hire a consultant to look into taking over the SQL process. And so the staff report seems to indicate that that was the case. And so just for clarification, I take pretty good notes, and I think that the staff report should reflect what actually occurred at that thing. And plus, I think we need to actual vote on whether this is a good idea or not. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, this is Dave Laredo. My notes coincide with what Director Hoffman indicated. I do believe that there was a reference in closed session to some of the alternatives that the general manager could follow. And there was some discussion of the potential of seeking authority and a statement of the district's options, but that would be done by the general manager, and there was no action by the board to so direct. So I believe in that context, this agenda report is technically an error, just in terms of the statement that the board directed the general manager to do so. There was a statement that of his intention to do so, and there was an opportunity for the board to direct him otherwise, but the board did not take direct action. I believe that this was taken under the authority of the general manager.
Okay, what do we do to correct this? Do we keep this on the agenda to move ahead?
I believe it can stay on the agenda. I believe the summary is slightly misworded, but I believe that the recommendation still stands that, and it is appropriate for the board to consider a ratification of the engagement of Shoot, Mahoney, and Weinberger as presented.
Director Hoffman, did that clarify your question?
Well, that just brings to the, if I'm not mistaken, and maybe legal counsel can correct me, but now there needs to be a motion, and unless there's a motion in a second, then this won't happen.
That is correct. That's the way. This is on the consent calendar. It's been pulled from the consent calendar, and this is now the recommendation is the board should consider the recommendation of the administrative committee to ratify the engagement.
Okay. Any other board members have any questions? Director Potter, do you have any questions?
No, I don't, Mr. Chair. I understand the issue, and I think Mr. Hoffman's done a good job of servicing it.
Okay. Anyone in the public have any questions on this item?
Director Edwards, it looks like Jeff Davi has his hand raised.
Okay, let's.
Chair, excuse me, I'm sorry, Chair Edwards.
Yeah, go ahead.
If I'm not mistaken, unless a motion's made and seconded, then this dies right now, and there's no need for public discussion unless a motion's made to do this and seconded.
Mr. Chairman, I do not believe that's accurate. The matter does not come back to the board for action of any type until after public discussion has been concluded.
Okay.
Thank you, counsel, for the clarification.
And we're going to take this out to the public, and I think Mr. Davey have 3 minutes.
Arlene, I believe you have to unmute him.
All right. All right, Mr. Davey, go ahead and present your comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Jeff Davey, Chairman of the Monterey Coalition of Peninsula Businesses. And I was just trying to get clarification and understanding of what the real purpose of this was as it relates to the M1 water project and their expansion. I've been criticized for saying that water project is not a good project, a failed project. I don't mean to imply that. The project itself is one of the three-legged stool that I've been advocating for years, and it's a good project. However, the expansion I have been critical of and continue to be critical of it because of the shortcomings of the original project. And I just don't really know why the water district is going down this path at this point. I am hoping that you don't make a motion to do this and that you don't spend the time doing it, because I don't think it's necessary, as there's enough work to be done with the original project. There's no reason to do anything to try to make the expansion come back into play when the first part or the first phase is not even complete and doing what we expected. So I guess I would just hope that this doesn't happen. And with that, I'll finish talking. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to speak on this item from the public?
Director Edwards, I see no other raised hands.
Thank you. Do we have a motion and a second on this item? I'd like to make a motion that we approve this item number 3. Do I have a second?
Second.
Now, second from Mr. Rowley. Discussion.
I have a point.
Go ahead there.
As I recall, we were entering into some maybe uncomfortable, but also some untreaded ground with our partner agency, Monterey One Water. It seemed to me when the discussion that I remember was that we really needed to be careful about how we went about this. We needed to be careful that we don't ruin a relationship that we've had for a long time. And I felt that we had left the discretion to our general manager to try to find a way forward on how we might work around or with or through the project for the SEIR. And so I support this approach, because there's some untested area and some unknown areas that I think we need some specific advice on, and that's why I'm supporting the motion.
Thank you.
And Chair Edwards?
Yes,
Director
go ahead,
Byrd?
Vice Chair.
I basically don't support this, mostly because I think it flies in the face of trying to come to a reasonable resolution with our partner. I understand the go forward with this, but I just think we should have made a little more effort to resolve the issues with Monterey One Water.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Any other board members want to speak on this item?
Chair, Director Hoffman would like to make a statement on this.
Go ahead.
There's a reason why Monterey One Water was the lead secret agency. That's because it's their project. It's on their property. And so it would be basically unprecedented for another public agency to try to hijack the secret process of a project which is being done by another public agency. So this is a colossal waste of money. And so I think that this is just going down a rabbit hole. We need to just cut it off right here. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Director Hoffman. Any other board members? Well, here's the comments from the chair. We need to look at all our options into this. We're looking at $964,000 that this district has to pay out if we don't proceed with this, to check all our options. I think if I remember, we're going to do what we have to do to get this done, we're going to send Director Evans over there to talk to him. And then we're going to look at our legal options on this. And that's what I heard at the closed session. So I wish the board would approve this so we can put all the pieces in place. We can take our time, not take our time, because we're running out of time on projects. So we need to approve this, and we're going to take those steps that the other board members want to take by going to talk to them and see can we resolve the problem. But we also going to give our general manager other options that is needed for this effort. So closing with that, I will take a roll call vote.
Director Evans,
Aye.
Director Adams,
Aye.
Director Potter,
Aye.
Director Hoffman,
No.
Director Riley,
Aye.
Director Byrne,
No.
Director Edwards.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-2.
Motion passes 5-2. Thank you. Moving on to the general manager's reports.
Yes, thank you. It's a lengthy agenda, so I'll try to be brief. And Arlene will pull up the presentation for regulatory compliance. There we go. Next slide. Great. So here's actual versus target production. You can see that we're under in terms of Carmel River pumping, but over in the coastal subbasin of the Seaside Groundwater Basin. All net, we're about 118 acre feet below the target, which bodes well. Next slide, please. One of the things I want to highlight here is we're still seeing variability in Sand City production. This shows only 6 acre feet over last month, whereas last month was 26 acre feet over the month before. So we will be investigating a little bit as to what the status is and the reliability going forward. Next slide, please. This is a monthly production from all sources. This is a measure of consumer demand. And interestingly, we're 30 acre feet over the same time last year. We've had some discussion about shelter in place and what might be happening with consumer demand, with restaurants shut down for a significant period of time and hotels shut down for a significant period of time. The interesting takeaway is over the last 3 months, compared to the same time last year, June, we were 10 under. May, we were 13 acre feet over same time last year. And April, down 116. So we're seeing no clear-cut correlation to the COVID-19 economy. I think we are still seeing some correlation to when rain arrived, keeping in mind that October was dry and February was completely dry. So I wish I could tell you more. I wish we had greater correlation, but we don't see it in the numbers. Next slide. We're heading into the non-rainy season. So pretty much where we're at is probably where we'll end up. We had about 17.5 inches of rain, 84% of long-term average. And if we finish out the year at that level, that would be in the normal category, believe it or not, despite the really subpar October, January, and February. Next slide. On unimpaired flow, we are at 68% of the long-term average. And you can see a lot of variability as you look at December versus January and February and March and so forth. But believe it or not, that 68% long-term average will also result in us being in a normal water year. And that concludes the report on compliance. I did want to point out that Pure Water Monterey has successfully injected 825 acre-feet to date. So we're on target for a late August fulfillment of the 1,000 acre-foot operating reserve. It's definitely a slower pace than expected due to the failure of the shallow well and the turning off of both the shallow wells or beta zone wells, but we're making it. So we will be in position to deliver water for customers beginning the beginning of September. The item 8 is an update on the strategic plan that was adopted in April of 2019. And a couple of changes based on conversation with one director.
Hello?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep.
I should be muted.
Oh, hey, Jeff. On the first goal area, continued advanced water supply projects, it was pointed out that the second bullet says support commencement of the Callahan water supply project. The check mark and accomplished was really related on the second section, financing order and timing for ratepayer relief fund. I think arguably it could be said that we did nothing to commence with the Callahan desal project, and in fact, last month issued a letter to the contrary. In the fifth bullet, which says address rule changes, it says accomplished, but all except for easing transfers can be said to have been accomplished. And we pretty much did nothing with easing transfers because of the increased scrutiny of the state water board. And that concludes that presentation. The summary speaks for itself and can be a tool for reminding you where we are and where we're headed. Most of the 3-year goals are still in process.
Okay, thank you, JM. Any questions from the board members?
Chair, this is Director Evans. I do have a question of the General Manager.
Go ahead, Director Evans.
Thank you. On the strategic goal summary, item number 3, the strategic goal is to continue to raise profile of district at local, regional, state, and federal level. I take issue that it all says accomplished, because I don't think this should be accomplished. I think this should be ongoing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Director Edwards.
Go ahead, Vice Chair.
I actually like the way this is presented. I mean, there's a couple of things that were corrections, but I like the way this is presented in terms of the actual goals we've set over the years and what the progress is on them. So I appreciate staff's analysis here.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Any other directors? Okay, just a couple of comments. Dan, could you get us an update on Sleepy Hollow in the future? What's going on out there?
Yeah, in fact, Larry Hampson has requested to present with photos and video at the September board meeting.
Thank you. And another one, the legislation board that I sit on with Director Potter is the chair, and the vice chair sits on that. You have done a good job with that. I like the updates that we are doing. I think Director Potter directed us to have a few more meetings through the year on this, about every 2 or 3 months, about every 3 months, matter of fact, to update us. So you need to keep us updated. I agree with Director Evans about something that shouldn't be ongoing, shouldn't be completed yet.
Director Edwards, I have a comment, if I may.
All right. Go ahead, Director Hoffman.
Yeah, I think the board and the public would appreciate if some of the information that's provided at the end of the agenda regarding what's happening on the Carmel River as it relates to rescuing the endangered species and what's going on the Carmel River and the efforts that we're making, I think being highlighted, not just appended to the end of the report. So if we could get regular actual, not a presentation, but update and summary, so that it's promoted to the public what we're doing, I think I would, for one, would appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. Any other directors have any comments?
Chair Edwards, I had one more
Go ahead,
question.
Vice Chair.
On page 65, under item 12, it says promote strategies for addressing the striped bass issue. And it says it's been accomplished. What are the strategies?
Well, so we did implement with Department of Fish and Wildlife and other observers a catch and capture at the end of last season. I cannot tell you what it's going to be going forward. There's a hesitation to formally enact a predation program. But I think it needs to kind of remain a fisheries group priority, because absent the weir for counting the steelhead, all we have had to date has been basically the sonar device, the LiDAR device, and it can't distinguish a steelhead from a striped bass. So that data is becoming somewhat unusable. And the striped bass have worked their way up the channel, working their way towards the San Clemente Dam reroute area. So we're going to need to have a continued approach to striped bass, and it'll be up to my fisheries people to see what can continue to be developed. But there was a program during the last season that proved to be somewhat effective.
So maybe that's an ongoing as opposed to an accomplished.
Yeah, a lot of these, that's a very good point. And, back to Director Evans' point, even the title was continue with. And so if you're ongoing, I guess you've accomplished continue. So, there's some semantical issues as well.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? All right, thank you, General Manager. Report from the District Council on the June 15th, 2020 board closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening to you, the board, and members of the public. The full report of the closed session held on the 15th was approved in your minutes. There was one item on that session. It was an anticipated initiation of litigation by the district. In an abbreviated report, a motion was made by Director Evans on the second of Chair Edwards to initiate the dispute resolution process specified in the May 2013 cost-sharing agreement between this district and Monterey One Water. The motion was approved on a 6-1 vote with Director Hoffman dissenting. That concludes my report.
Thank you, sir. Now, director's report, including AB 1, 2, 3, 4, reports on trips, conferences, and attendance and meetings. Do we have any? Okay. Any board members? Do we have any? We have none. I've got a couple of things right fast. Hey, I'd like to thank the general manager and our CFO for getting us our iPads and getting us all online where I can see everybody's face. If you have not received a district iPad, they're in the office, see the CFO, gladly have you get one, because we have some of our meetings on Zoom. We have some of our meetings on WebEx. I want you to be able to go to all your meetings that you want to and not use your equipment unless you want to use it. So the district is furnishing the equipment for you. I'm glad to see everybody on, and I want to thank them for getting that done. Next, I'd like to close our meeting, and it was brought up ahead by Director Evans in honor of Mayor Ralph Rubio and Mayor Joe Gunther. They've been really instrumental with water on this peninsula and in the county. So I like to close the meeting in their honor tonight. So that's all I have. Now we will go to the.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I do see that one person has his hand raised, Mr. Jeff Davy.
Okay, thank you. Could we?
It's a mistake. I'm sorry. Sorry, guys.
Well, thank you, Mr. Davy. I know you're keeping our staff on their toes tonight. Thank you. Okay, public hearing. Arlene, how many, or General Manager, how many people we have in the meeting tonight?
We have 32 attendees, 5 by phone that we have no identity for, and the rest connected via WebEx. Okay,
I'm going to reduce public comment by 1 minute. You will have 2 minutes to comment on these public hearing and action items. So, Arlene, what is our first public hearing? General Manager, help me out here.
Yeah. Okay, so this is agenda item 10.
I am.
Summarized loosely as the Ascent project in Seaside. And it's a request for a variance on the metering rules. And I'll let Stephanie Locke introduce it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'll wait until Arlene gets the slides up here. And Arlene, go ahead and go to the second slide, please. So this evening, Weston Partners LLC is requesting a variance to allow permanent submetering for a mixed-use project that they have proposed in the city of Seaside. The project involves 106 residential units that are located in 10 different buildings and a small amount of commercial space. The installation of 110 utility CalAm water meters presents a problem and is really not feasible and would conflict with other utilities. So in this case, Weston Partners has requested a variance to allow a master meter for each building with sub-meters that would monitor the water use for each of the tenants, the common area, and the landscape. Next, please. The variance request is for District Rule 23. And District Rule 23 requires a separate water meter by the water distribution system operator, so CalAm in this case, for each individual user. And a user is either a dwelling unit or a commercial space that has its own water use. We require a separate meter for landscape, and we require a separate meter if there's a common area that has water in it. So in this case, the rule actually allows the board to consider a variance when the installation of a separate water meter is not feasible due to, and this is a defined term, special circumstances, which are unusual, uncommon, peculiar, unique, or rare situations that require board consideration, which is why you have a variance before you this evening. In considering a variance, the board needs to determine if a different type of water measuring device is appropriate. And in this case, we're looking at sub-meters. So it would be a master meter by CalAm, and then individual sub-meters to each of the tenants and the other uses. Reporting of consumption has to be a condition of approval, and that's in our rules and regulations. Next, please. In terms of accountability, the proposed action to submeter with the conditions supports the district's goal to make water users accountable for their own water use. This helps with our conservation program. It also helps us in times of rationing for enforcement purposes. Staff supports submetering as an alternative to requiring a large number of water meters located in the right-of-way for large commercial
large multifamily housing and mixed-use projects. CalAm meters are generally installed along a sidewalk or on the property line, and because they don't go on the property to read the meters, they're looking for the right of way. Submetering technology is consistent with the district goal for individual accountability, and especially these days, technology has improved dramatically, and submetering makes sense in situations like this. Individual tenants receive consumption feedback. Again, they can be responsible for their own use. They know how much they're using, and it would also help to identify if there are leaks within an existing unit. The board has granted a number of previous variances for submetering of mixed uses. And I believe the board packet lists those projects for you. They're the most recent large multifamily projects that have come through. Next, please. So I have 2 pages of recommendations. The first is kind of a summary. We've included conditions of approval with a staff report, which is Exhibit 10C. And those conditions include an indemnification agreement and consumption reporting to the district and the tenants. After the staff report was submitted last week, I heard from Kurt Obermeyer, the Economic Development Director for the City of Seaside, who told me that the property had transferred ownership and was no longer under city ownership, which the staff report talks about how the city owns the property. So given the fact that the property has transferred, the conditions will need to be revised to reflect that change in ownership. The other thing that I would also like to recommend is that we do a 3-party indemnification agreement. So it would be between, the agreement would have to have the new ownership and the City of Seaside in an indemnification agreement with the district. And this is goes along with what we did with the Garden Road project. And I do have to say that the indemnification agreement that was provided in the board packet as Exhibit 10E needs to be amended slightly if it is an agreement between the 3 parties. So what I would propose we do is go ahead and make the same changes that we would do with the Garden Road project for this type of a situation now that the city no longer owns the property, but we are relying on the city's CEQA findings, and so there's some potential liability there. So that's the recommendation. Next, please. So staff is recommending that the board approve the variance this evening, adopt the conditions of approval to be revised for the new ownership and the 3-party indemnification, and adopt the findings of approval, which are Exhibit 10D in your packet. Another one of the condition of approval is that the variance shall expire if construction has not commenced within 2 years. And that has kind of been a standard condition because we don't want projects continuing without any end in there. So anyway, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Stephanie. Any board questions? Anyone from the board?
Yeah, Chair Edwards.
Go ahead, Director Hall.
Sounds like my department dog also. I guess some clarification on the indemnification and what they're indemnifying themselves against.
So one, like I said, we're relying on the city's CEQA analysis. So that is one potential area. Another would be, according to our council, somebody could claim arbitrary and capricious approval. I don't know that anything like that would happen, but I'll turn it over to Mr. Laredo and he can probably answer any of those questions.
Well, I'm going to answer a little more generically, and that is the indemnification goes to any challenge of the district's action. It could be a member of another public body. It could be a member of the public. Any challenge to the approval of this action or the implementation of the water permit, that we would be seeking indemnification for the defense costs.
And if I could follow up.
Go ahead.
So for example, when we did the the previous project, one of the things that was indemnification was the volume of water that the property could use. And as I recall, correct me if I'm wrong. And so with the sale of this property from the city to, I would assume, an investor group, how does and if that applies in this case for this project?
Well, I don't recall that we've had an indemnification that limits the amount of water that's going to be used. Staff could correct me if I'm wrong.
I thought that was the case with the things over by the airport, that the indemnification was to assure that the amount of water used did not exceed the previous usage from the previous owners. Am I mistaken?
No, I don't think that was the case. Dave, you're muted.
Bit different in Garden Road. The indemnification that we're seeking is actually from the city, that if we make water available in the amounts required for their expanded project, if somehow Cal-Am is enforced against and then transfers that enforcement to the property owner by curtailing deliveries, that we would be held not liable. And the issue there was a recognition that the extra 100% affordable units that needed an additional allocation of water is clearly an expansion of use that came with a warning from the state to not do it.
And it was from the district reserve allocation. And that was the difference here, is that they weren't requesting a variance from the metering requirement. They were requesting water from the district reserve allocation. And in fact, I'm not really sure, but they may have to come back and request a variance from the metering requirement.
Yeah, depending on how they plan that out. Yeah.
So you may see them again.
Okay, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, I see the distinction between the two, and this may apply, Stephanie, may not, but like with the Garden Road properties, there was a requirement for them to use great water systems, and to what extent, I know this is just a variance for metering, but I thought that we had in the agreement for their variance a great water requirement.
I'm not sure if that was part of our approval, but the city was, it was part of the project that the city was touting as being one of the benefits.
But is there a gray water requirement?
There is not a gray water requirement, no. They may have needed the gray water to reduce the amount of water needed from the district reserve to a level that we could consider.
So we're talking about the Seaside one. Are y'all talking about the Monterey one?
No,
right now we are. Yeah.
Let's get back on the agenda, Mr. Laredo. Where you at?
Yeah, I'm talking about the Seaside one. I'm just wanting to make sure that we're consistent between what we're doing with the Seaside project and what we did with the Monterey project. And
yeah, gray water is not a requirement.
But they can look at it if they want to. This is Seaside water that they're using. Let's get it all out there. Any other questions?
Mr. Riley has a question.
Okay.
Is it,
Riley, go ahead.
Stephanie, is this a 2-story building, 3-story building? How big are the buildings?
Actually, the applicant is on the telephone right now, so that you could ask that question. They're multi-story buildings.
Well, then let me ask my other question too. Do we approve sub-metering specifically by number of sub-units to a building? Or do we approve the idea and then they come back with the details later?
So in this case, the reason that this request is coming forward right now is because they have to complete construction plans. And so the approval of the variance obviously makes a big difference in how the engineering of the project is put together. So if the board didn't approve that, then they would have to find a completely different way of plumbing the project site, which is why it's here right now.
So this is a pre-designed decision to allow flexibility for going forward.
Yeah, they've started, they have the initial project, and they've already received a number of approvals for the project. They just have not at this point done the full construction plans.
Okay, thank you.
So for our water permit process, we would be looking for the full construction plans before we finalize a water permit.
Okay, thank you.
Any other board questions? Okay, let's open it up to the applicant and see if they have any comments they'd like to make for 3 minutes.
Arlene, would you unmute Patrick Orozco?
Mr. Orozco, you may comment.
I also believe Tyler Potter may be involved and Matt Knorr.
I think Tyler's there for the pipeline.
Okay.
My apologies, Ed. My line muted on this end. This is Patrick Orozco speaking. Thank you for consideration of this variance. Stephanie is correct. We are essentially trying to correct an engineering anomaly here, wherein plumbing to multiple meters is inconsistent with what's a standard practice in a multifamily development. I think that the issue originates from the fact that there haven't been many multifamily developments right before you in recent years. So it caught us a bit off guard, but I appreciate staff's support of this cleanup item. If you have any questions about the project, I'm happy to answer those.
Mr. Orozco, they want to, Director Rowley want to know how tall these buildings are. How many stories?
Yeah, I apologize. I did do that. There'll be 3 stories. There will be there's one building that's terraced into the hillside, will actually be 4 stories.
Okay, thank you. Any other board questions from the applicant? If none, we're going to open it up to the public for 2 minutes.
Susan Schiavone, please present your comment.
My comment is this, I am very supportive of new housing in Seaside. I'm not sure if this is going to be designated low-income housing, but one of the things I've run into in our community is that if people are in sub-metered buildings where they don't have the bill in their name and it goes to someone else and then they have to pay part of that bill, they do not qualify for the low-income assistance from CalAm. CalAm will not let you do it unless the bill's in your name. So I think we need to think about those things when we start building stuff. I don't know what it means engineering-wise. It would probably be a madhouse to do all that plumbing, and I get what you're doing, but I just wanted to bring that up as a complication for these kind of living situations for people with low income. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Edwards, I see no other comments, no other raised hands.
All right, thank you. To the board for any motion. Second.
I'd like to move approval.
I'd like to second.
I'd also like to make just a couple of quick comments, and that is that I think this project is going to provide some really much needed housing on the peninsula and is a great example of redevelopment. Putting housing in this area will also support the city of Seaside's vision for the Broadway area and their investments in the infrastructure of the area. I think the rule provides for this variance and it appears to be a logical logistical solution to the problem that the sub-meters, I think, will solve. So with that, my motion, I'm happy to make the motion to approve it.
Thank you, Director Adams. Any other comments?
Chair Edwards, this is Director Evans. I do have I do believe that Ms. Schiavone raises an interesting point on whether a submeter would disallow a low income rate to a ratepayer. I think that is something obviously that's out of our purview, but it's something that I think we should look into, and perhaps staff can report back to the board on options so that we can look at this again in the future. But otherwise, I think this is an excellent solution to allow this housing project to move forward. And as we all know, more housing is needed here. So if this is a solution where we can still maintain some awareness of use by the tenants, by the common areas, and the project as a whole, and that we could go back to that if we ever needed to for rationing or other purposes, I think this is an excellent solution and we should move forward on it.
Chair Edwards?
Yes, Vice Chair, go ahead.
I have a question. Wouldn't the sub-meters be in the name of or in the apartment that they service? So that seems like that would solve the low income issue with CalAm.
Yeah, unfortunately it wouldn't, because the LIRA program it's a tariff sheet based program. So you need to have an account with CalAm so that they can designate it in their system to receive the discount. So each of the first 4 tiers of the 5 here in Monterey, it's a 30% volumetric discount. Tier 5 is the same, no discount. And then on the monthly meter service charge, it's a 20% discount. And so because CalAm would not be connected to the sub-meters, there's no way for them to access the account. The account will be basically a master meter account. And so there would be no predictable way for CalAm to have the water consumption used by the qualifying income qualified low income folks.
But wouldn't the sub-meters tell each individual apartment how much water they're using? I mean, isn't that the topic?
Yep.
And they would pay based on that amount of water.
Well, that's not understood yet. It'll be between the management company and the tenants through their leases how utilities are doled out, if they receive a separate bill or if it's an equal part of the master metered bill or what have you.
But the object of the sub-meter is to determine how much each person is using.
Except different property managers use that information differently. We want sub-meters so that if we are in a water shortage situation where we're going into rationing, that we can actually enforce rations on individual units. That's one of the primary drivers for us to sub-meter. The idea and the reason our rules have actual meters as the norm is that, you're supposed to have a price signal, and that's a best management practice in the water industry. You'd be surprised to know that basically 90% of the costs of running the utility are fixed, but they only recover about 30% of the revenues through the fixed charge. And so you're trying to capture fixed annual costs through a volumetric price signal, which is why things break down when there's really over-the-top conservation. But that connection between the sub-meter and the actual account and the billing data just isn't there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It forwards the building of this many apartments. It's a way to get there.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw the photo on the first slide that Stephanie presented, but that's over on Via Nona Marie and Rio Road. And I think it was merely 13 meter boxes, but it took up all of the landscaped area in front of the building, on one side, and then the other side, I think, was another 9 or what have you. I don't think in our minds that we've fully thought through the buildability issues of a 100-unit building.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Any other comments from the board?
Yeah, Chair Edwards, if I may.
Go ahead, Director Hoffman.
It's clear that having 100 meters is just a nightmare from a plumbing and engineering perspective on projects. That's goes without saying. And clearly, the housing in Seaside is necessary and appreciated that they're moving forward with. I think Director Evans and Director Byrne brought up an interesting point, and that is the master meter owner has the ability to charge whatever they want for the water once it goes to the master meter to all the subtenants. And for me, that's a concern because that is pretty much unregulated, and there's no authority that we have or that I'm aware of anybody has on how a property manager penalizes or charges folks in the submetering realm after the water goes through the master meter. I think this is something that should be looked into to make sure that there's not predatory practices done by property owners against their tenants as it relates to their water usage. And I think that one of the things that I noticed in the resolution was that a condition was to have records available if requested. And I would suggest that maybe we want to tighten those up a bit to provide potentially a disincentive for the master meter owner to exact additional profits from the tenants of the complexes of which they are managing.
Director Hoffman, I believe there actually is some kind of legislation or some kind of state law out there that prevents that type of situation from occurring. And I'll be happy to look into it and share that information with you. But I don't believe that they can penalize somebody for their water use or charge more than is actually being charged by the water purveyor.
Can I have a comment?
Yes, Stephanie.
After Gary's done.
Yeah, when he finishes, you can go ahead. Go ahead, Director Hoffman.
Yeah, Stephanie, that's the thing. As opposed to penalizing, what's to prevent the property owner from instituting their own tiered water structure on their tenants? And so that's kind of, this may be beyond, I know this is beyond the variance that they're asking for, and this is more of a legal issue. But I think that in the context of master metering and submetering, we can't ignore the potential abuses that could occur. Thanks.
Director Rowley, thank you, Director Hoffman. Director Rowley,
Actually, before that happens, I'd like to say, Stephanie, I would appreciate, this is Director Evans, I would appreciate it if you would look that up and see what the California state law says about that, and at the very least report back to me. I would appreciate knowing.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Report back to the full board. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes,
Director Rowley, go ahead.
That's part of my point too. I'm less interested in monitoring predatory practices than I am in making sure that Cal-Am's LIRA program applies and meets the intent that it was established for, which is a low income rate break. So I would like and maybe there'll be several reports over a period of time, but Stephanie, I would like to have the focus of the attempt here based on Ms. Schiavone's comments and then our comments too, that we try to find a way to make it work. And that's a more positive approach to it. And I know there's concerns about scamming, but that's not my focus. And anyway, I support Director Evans' request to report back to the full board too. Thank you.
Yeah, interestingly, according to their rate modeler in the current general rate case, about 12% of the connections are part of the low-income ratepayer assistance program. But if you look at their distribution on a GIS mapping tool, they're not in the disadvantaged communities predominantly. They are all over the peninsula. And it speaks a lot to older folks on fixed income that are house rich and income poor. But it only picks up those that are single family connections. And so a lot of the master metered multifamily connections are completely glossed over. And also, as was pointed out, they don't have that opportunity to join the low income ratepayer assistance program.
Thank you, Jim. Any other?
Edwards, I do. I actually have two questions, if I may.
Go ahead.
First question is, do we know whether this is a low-income project or if there is some low-income housing units within the project? And secondly, is this a Cal-Am serviced property or is it Seaside Muni servicing this property?
Yeah, it is Cal-Am and it does have a component of affordable housing.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, I'll make my quick comments. I know Seaside City Council been working on projects like this a long time. When I was sitting on the council, we were working for projects like this. That vacant project down there that they talking about filling up been vacant about 40 years. I know about 35 of my years being here, that's been vacant. And we finally got somebody to build on it and build affordable housing on it. One of my biggest problems, I'm worried about all these properties is identification, being identified. I'm worried about this district, and I hope Mr. Laredo and Stephanie make sure that this district is protected. I'm really concerned about that, and take it to the cities, and if they want to sign out on these indemnifications, that's fine. I'm behind them. If they don't, we can't support the project. I'm sorry. So they need to know that. All these projects need to know it. I know we're supposed to have to send a letter to Monterey about it. I hope that's being done. But closing on that, I'll call for the roll call.
Director Potter?
Aye.
Director Hoffman?
Yes.
Director Riley?
Yes.
Director Byrne?
Yes.
Director Evans?
Aye.
Director Adams?
Aye.
Director Edwards?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Motion passes 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim, what's the next item?
The next item is another public hearing related to a resolution. This one is motivated relative to your future decision as to whether you want to move forward with a condemnation proceeding and a public resolution of necessity vote on the acquisition of the Cal-Am Monterey water system. In order to, should you decide to take that action, in order to be able to actually acquire, you will have to activate some latent powers as a result of a lawsuit between PG&E and the South San Joaquin Irrigation District, I believe it was. Even if you have the power in your enabling legislation, if you haven't been using that power, it needs to be activated, which means it needs to be approved by your local agency formation commission or LAFCO. Furthermore, in order for us to match the Cal-Am main system boundaries and pick up an additional 43 connections on 58 parcels, the district would have to do an annexation. So especially for an activation of latent powers, LAFCO requires a public hearing and a resolution of the board. This resolution will do both things, begin the annexation process as well as the activation of the ability to run a utility with retail water services.
Okay, any board questions?
Chair, this is Director Hoffman. I have a couple.
Go ahead, Director Hoffman.
Just from a timing perspective, Dave, we haven't done the EIR yet. So shouldn't that be completed first before we move forward with the resolution about activating our latent powers, about expanding our sphere of influence and the ability to do it? It just seems to me like it's kind of the cart before the horse. If you could probably help with my understanding.
Right, and General Counsel Laredo did address a very similar question with Rincon Consultants, our EIR consultant, and determined that the time is ripe for this process. LAFCO ultimately won't take any action until the environmental review is complete, but they also need to get started. But Mr. Laredo, maybe you've got a comment.
I don't believe filing an application itself is a project requiring completion of CEQA. It starts the process rolling. We have a chicken and egg problem until we file the resolution with LAFCO. We don't get on their calendar. It's going to take a while for them to do that. Certainly the EIR needs to be completed before they can act on that. And ultimately, if they act, you still have discretion yourself as to what you're going to do with that latent power authority. So I don't believe that filing the application is by and of itself a project that requires CEQA to be completed. There will be some notice requirements yet to be completed before the LAFCO process itself can begin.
Yeah, and there are a bunch of, believe it or not, boxes to check on the application checklist. And the way it's written is that your CEQA review is clearly not expected to come in the door at the very beginning. But it is an item that has to be checked as submitted during the process.
Any other questions? General Manager, Mr. Laredo. Okay, are we doing some of these actions right now? Are we billing? Are we drilling wells? Why are we expanding on this? Because of what?
Well, the most fundamental is we do currently sell water. We sell reclaimed water. In about a month, we will be wholesaling potable water, but the delivery of water to the retail customers connection is something we are authorized to do, but we have not yet done. And so it was raised by LAFCO that very likely, and by Manat Phelps, the attorney for California American Water, that the activation of those latent powers is something that has to happen through LAFCO.
Okay, well, we've been doing this.
But Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
The district's going to have to go to LAFCO for the annexation, no matter what. So, because there are some of CalAM services that exist outside of the district's territory. So we're going to be in front of LAFCO no matter what. So the thought is that to ironclad our decision-making, to make an argument that we have, these aren't latent powers, we've exercised them, that's just another area for which there could be public challenge. And I think the better part of discretion is to go forward at this time and be as comprehensive in our review as is possible. We have to be to LAFCO anyways.
Okay, Mr. Laredo, another question. With these powers, can this district drill a well, buy water from Monterey One Water, and put it in the ground with these powers?
Yeah, you have the power to do that.
Right.
Yes.
You have the power to do that. You don't need to have the latent powers. You could do that now.
Oh, okay.
The question is...
Y'all know what's coming. Thank you. Any other board members?
Quick question. What's your estimate of What's your estimate of the timing for a LAFCO decision?
Yeah, that's a great question, Director Riley. They gave us, based on the, well, let's back up. A lot of these decisions have been made so that we wouldn't have to go back to press restart. So if we had done SQL Lite instead of a full EIR and lose a challenge on that, then you got to go back and still do the full EIR. So we decided to do the full EIR. That extended the schedule because LAFCO won't act until the EIR is complete. They gave us a December hearing timeline and shortly thereafter said, you know, it's probably more likely January. And then we also learned that it's not just the hearing and the action taken at the hearing, but there's up to 60 days of additional work outside of the hands or the control of the staffers to actually make a LAFCO decision final. So you're looking at the first quarter next calendar year.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other board questions before I take it out there to the public?
Yeah, excuse me.
Go ahead, Director Hoffman.
Just a clarification on the response about that the district has the ability to drill wells wherever we want. If I think it's appropriate that should be clarified, and that in the area of the Seaside Basin, in the influence area of the ASR and the Pure Water Monterey, there's clearly not an ability for the district to drill a well for extraction. So I would appreciate if the general manager and or the council would clarify what authority that we have as a district to drill wells for the production of water.
Yeah, no, that's valid. We have a no drill zone that this board approved several months ago for the Pure Water Monterey wells. We obviously can't drill in a manner that would increase withdrawals from the Carmel River, for which there's no right. We certainly could build wells like a Ranny field or some wells to enhance ASR under the current ASR water rights. But you certainly couldn't just drill wells for which you have no appropriative right on the river, and other limitations. Even with the right to condemn property, you can't just willy-nilly assume that you're going to take access or authorize yourself to drill a well on somebody's private property without just compensation and so forth. So I think we're allowing a statement of our free rights to just kind of pass. But yeah, it's all subject to the valid and relevant restrictions.
The question was posed as to whether the latent powers limitation restricted drilling. And the answer is the latent powers restriction is not the restriction on drilling. There are many, many other restrictions that we need to look at: water rights, zones of influence, no drill zones, and limitations on the state board and the groundwater adjudication. So there are many, many restrictions that have to be considered, but latent powers is not one of those with respect to wills.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other board questions? All right, Arlene, we'll take it out to the public for 2 minutes.
All right, if you're using your computer, please use the raise hand icon. If you are phoning in, please press *9. Chair Edwards, I see no raised hands.
Oh, well, that's nice of them. Okay, need a motion and a second.
I'd move adoption of resolution 2020-12.
I'll second.
And that was second. Motion made by Director Potter, second by the Vice Chair or somebody?
No, Director Evans.
Thank you, Director Evans. And a second by Director Evans. Discussion? Comments?
Excuse me, Chair Edwards, I do see a speaker. Someone has just raised their hand if you want to take the comment now.
Yeah, we'll take the comment.
Mr. Kelly, please present your comment.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
You can.
Hey, really appreciate the moment. Just wanted to say I really appreciate what y'all are doing. I just don't understand why you wouldn't get this done with the checklist and go ahead and make this. I'm sorry, I'm getting a lot of feedback. Sorry. Yeah, I would just like to see you all second this motion and make it go through. So that's all I'll say. Sorry, I'm getting a lot of feedback.
That's all right, Mr. Kelly.
Thank you. Yeah, I just hope the motion goes through. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else out there have their hands up there, Arlene?
I see no raised hands, Chair Edwards.
All right. We had a motion by Director Potter, second by Director Evans. Roll call vote, please.
Director Adams,
Aye.
Director Hoffman,
Yes.
Director Riley,
Aye.
Director Byrne,
Yes.
Director Evans,
Aye.
Director Potter,
Aye.
Director Edwards.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Motion passed 7-0. Thank you. I think we're in the action item, General Manager.
Yes, before I turn this one over to John Lear, who has a presentation, this topic is a pipeline that the Water Supply Planning Committee has heard about and approved. I believe the Administrative Committee has also overseen the release of funds for the consulting work. Memo to Arlene. On the line are Chris Cook, Ian, which I am assuming is Ian Crooks, and Tyler Potter, who is working on the environmental document. So as questions come, keep your eye on those three for potential response.
Chair Edwards, if I may.
Go ahead.
I'm sure the rest of the board members, they've checked their email, have received a letter from the legal counsel from Marina Coast Water District related to this item. And I think that maybe it would be appropriate for the board to have an opportunity to review the correspondence from Marina Coast Council before addressing this item. They seem to have serious concerns, and I think it would be prudent for them to have the opportunity, and us as a board to have the opportunity to review what the concerns are prior to taking action. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Hoffman. General Counsel.
I have not received such an email.
Okay.
Chair Edwards, is anyone from Marina Coast Water District in the audience that could speak to this?
Arlene, could y'all find out if anyone from Marina Coast can speak to this? I got an email, I just seen it.
I am in this meeting and I'm 100% in this meeting. I'm not checking my email during it, so I would never know that this came in if it hadn't been for Director Hoffman. I think that is an unfair way to do business. If they have a comment or concern, then they either bring it to the board meeting or bring it to the board before the board meeting, not during.
I agree with you, Director Evans.
May I ask a question? Mr. Stolt, have you seen such an email?
I've been checking and no, I don't see anything. So I can imagine what it's about.
No, let's not speculate.
Okay.
So if Excuse me, Chair Edwards, you asked if there was anyone from the city of Seaside. Are you still waiting to hear?
No, from Marina Coast Water District.
Marina Coast, that would
From
be
Marina Coast?
If I could clarify, actually, Chair Edwards did get the email. It was from a Chris Stiles.
Yes.
And so that's what I'm referring to, Chair. And I would think that I'm just going to look here at the distribution list. Director Riley, Director Byrne, Director Potter, and Director, I'm trying to see here. The director also was sent this, and I just, again, it was, the time stamp is 6:47. So just as a disclosure, I just thought it was appropriate to mention this. I recognize I'm not an advocate of any kind. I just thought it was important to bring this to the attention.
Thank you, Director Hoffman.
All right.
Let's take it out there to the public and then I'll bring it back.
All right, just a moment, please.
Well, and keep in mind, John has a presentation.
Yes. Do you want?
Let's change that. Let's do our presentation.
Okay.
And then we'll take it out to the public.
All right. I will give the presenter role back. John, you have the presenter role.
Thank you, Arlene. Okay, members of the board, good evening. This is, let me get these out of here. Okay, action item number 12, which is to consider adoption of the addendum to the district's prior EIR, environmental impact report for construction of a bypass pipeline. Am I on mute? Can you hear me?
No, we can hear you.
Great. To allow simultaneous pure water Monterey recovery and ASR injection. That approximately 1.3 miles of pipeline parallel in General Jim Moore would be needed if we were to want to operate both those projects simultaneously. As production from the Carmel River Basin is shifted over to the Seaside groundwater basin, there are more months of the year that the Peninsula demand will need to be met from wells in the Seaside Basin. It was identified that during spring to early summer months, there would need to be recovering of pure water Monterey water while continuing to inject water from the Carmel River if flows allowed. There was a question previous where the pipeline would be located, and it would be this green pipeline here. It would be just 1.3 miles, as we said before. It would bring water around and allow from the crest tank up on the hill and allow it to bypass, pass by the connection with the transfer pipeline over to the Forest Lake tanks, and would also allow water to come from Wellfield and Seaside and go through the transfer pipeline to the Forest Lake tanks and serve demand in the in New Monterey, Old Monterey, and the forest. So KLM then approached the district staff and asked if the district would act as lead CEQA for the construction of this pipeline. At the June meeting, the board directed the general manager to enter into a reimbursement agreement with KLM to complete the environmental work. Denise Duffy and Associates were hired and have completed the EIR addendum to support construction of the pipeline. And at the July Water Supply Planning Committee meeting, the committee recommended that the addendum be brought before the full board for adoption. And the findings that are associated with the EIR addendum are included in my staff note as Exhibit 12B in your board packet, and it contains resolution number 2020-13, which makes the necessary findings, if you were to make these findings, to adopt the EIR addendum. And staff recommends that if this pipe is to move forward, that the board would move to adopt this resolution and that would allow for the construction of the bypass pipeline and provide the environmental work as addendum 6 to the ASR, EIR, and EA. So with that, I conclude my presentation, Chair.
You're on mute.
I just unmuted him.
So that concludes my presentation, unless there's questions, and I'm trying to unshare my screen.
Okay.
Okay.
Any board questions?
Chair Edwards, I have a question.
Go ahead, Director Hoffman.
John, the actual addendum to the EIR is not just for a pipeline, but it also talks about a dechlorination facility. So your presentation does not address the dechlorination facility that's part of the addendum. Why is that?
Yes, the dechlorination facility is also a component that is necessary for the simultaneous production and injection of ASR, and that is technically because if we were to move into the early spring time of production of pure water Monterey water out of what would be the facility that holds ASR 1 and 2, the Santa Margarita facility, there is the need to dechlorinate the water so that you do not have to wait for the disinfection byproduct ingrowth, and then you can move directly into production. So it is a measure that would be taken if you were injecting. You would start dechlorinating 2 months out from when you wanted to produce, so that you could move right off of injection and into production, and therefore you could save 2 months of production and make the project and the production of water more efficient.
Yeah, John, it's not, my question really wasn't that about the dechlorination itself, but the fact that the addendum to the EIR needs to reflect the environmental impacts of the dechlorination process and dechlorinated water. And in looking at the addendum, I'm not convinced that it does that. Could you provide additional clarity on how the addendum addresses the dechlorination aspect as opposed to just the pipeline itself?
I'm not sure I know exactly or understand exactly your question. The dechlorination is examined in the addendum of the ESR, of the EIR, and maybe if you have a technical question about how CEQA applies, I can direct it to our CEQA consultant.
Yeah, that's the thing. We're here to adopt an amendment to a document saying that we agree with the findings, the environmental findings, and so it's kind of for me to ask the question now is kind of too late because apparently that aspect of the environmental impact hasn't been addressed in the existing addendum.
I think you're on mute, Dave.
Is this something that Tyler Potter is prepared to address? If so, raise your hand and Arlene can unmute you. Otherwise, Chris or Ian.
Good afternoon, Chair, fellow directors. This is Tyler Potter. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, excellent. Thank you. This is, again, for the record, Tyler Potter, Senior Project Manager with Denise Duffy and Associates. I can confirm that the addendum itself considers potential impacts associated with construction of the bypass pipeline itself. It also includes an evaluation of the environmental effects associated with the dechlorination facility at the Peralta well site, and also separately includes an evaluation of a temporary soil deposition site that's located off of Mescal. So the EIR EA addendum number 6 covers those kind of three subcomponents of the project, and the entire analysis does speak to each one of those issues under each one of the topical issue areas under CEQA. And I believe that should be reflected in attachment A to the addendum itself, which is a fairly expansive discussion of each one of the topical issue areas required under the California Environmental Quality Act.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Director Rao.
I hope this isn't too complicated. At least I hope I don't present it in too complicated way. I've heard over the past, I don't know, months, that there is a bypass pipeline issue related to Marina Coast water supply capacity in their pipeline. And I understood.
We have somebody mic on out there.
Anyway, so that was a pipeline issue that I think the Coastal Commission had some comment on at some point months ago, but that was a pipeline bypass issue. This is a bypass pipeline issue as well. And I'm confused, or I want clarification. Are these two different bypass issues, or are it's the same issue now in a different costume or something? I don't want to be suspicious here, but I'm just trying to find out. My understanding over the past year or 9 months or so that there were two bypass issues. Is this one of two, or is this one of one and it's being described differently? I don't know who to ask the question to. Or general manager.
Yeah, well, first of all, this goes to the heart of the Marina Coast Water District letter as well. There is a difference between what was scoped in the Pure Water Monterey expansion SEIR, and there was a pipeline routing in there. And this pipeline routing, according to Marina Coast's letter, falls on the same footprint. As John has explained previously, this pipeline actually goes past the point of connection with the Monterey pipeline, the transmission pipeline, and connects with the pipeline in General Jim Moore Boulevard. I think the graphic that John showed earlier showed waters flowing up over the hill from the Crest tank into ASR, while produced water would be going down the shared pipeline and into the Monterey pipeline. John, correct me if that's not what your graphic showed.
You got it correct.
Yeah, but there is some concern that this is a duplicate bypass pipeline to what was scoped in the SEIR that failed to get certified. That nominal difference is the difference. As explained to me, water would be flowing north to ASR and south from the production wells, as opposed to the concerns expressed by Marina Coast Water District that this pipeline would allow water to flow south to the Monterey pipeline for delivery elsewhere in the system. Could it be engineered differently at some point in the future? Yeah, probably. But that's not what's being done here. So it's not a duplicate pipeline. I guess you still have the issue of the argument taking place between Marina Coast Water District and Cal-Am over whether there's sufficient capacity to serve desalinated water in the existing shared pipeline. The pipeline that was scoped in the SEIR that didn't get certified would have solved that problem. Whether this one can be, gerrymandered to also solve that problem, I don't have an answer for. But the problem that John has described and Cal-Am representatives have described on other committee meetings is the one we're talking about, which is a loss of ASR capacity during production time. I don't know if, John, you have anything to add to that, or if anybody from the company wants to raise their hand and get called on by Arlene.
Dave, I think that you summarized that correct, and it is the desire to be able to maximize injection, as well as in this time of moving forward where production for Pure Water Monterey needs to be pushed into what would be the ASR season, and this is the mitigation to that.
Okay. Any other board questions?
Before we go out to the public, could Cal-Am respond whether this is a rerun of the pipeline solution from the prior SEIR? And I'm just a little concerned about how it's being the big picture issue about what we're dealing with. That's all. And I may be the only one confused here, but I thought there were two different arguments being made in two different arenas for a bypass pipeline. And if that's true, why are there two different arguments if there's really overlapping arguments?
Can we get
Director, yeah, this is Ian Crooks.
Go ahead, sir.
Yes, hi. I'm not quite clear on exactly what this letter says. I've not seen this new Marina Coast letter. The pipeline that's in front of you tonight is simply a bypass. I wouldn't know if I would even characterize it as not bypass, but parallel pipeline that allows operational redundancy, efficiency, and flexibility to do much more with Pure Water Monterey, ASR, and the Carmel River than one single pipeline would allow. I would also point out that when I alluded to redundancy, you also just think about there's one pipeline up on General Jim Moore. If that pipeline also was to break, if most of the supplies are coming from the north, we only have one pipeline that's pretty critical to getting supplies into the peninsula. So it also adds a level of redundancy, I think, that we all need. Whether or not, Director Riley, I'm not quite sure the apples to apples you're talking about, but I think you're saying it's the same parallel pipeline or two pipelines in General Jim Moore that we're trying to install, as maybe has been brought up in the past.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Any other board questions? No other board questions? Arlene, we'll take it out to the public for 2 minutes each.
Howard Wilkins, please present your comment.
Hi, this is Howard Wilkins, counsel from Marina Coast Water District. I submitted the letter. And just to be clear, I did have my hand raised when you asked for hands. It just didn't go out to me. So I haven't been hiding here. Marina Coast only discovered this issue, this proposed addendum this afternoon after 4 o'clock. So this is not an effort to submit late comments on something. And we rushed to submit what we could figure out within a 2-hour period to you. So I apologize for the late comments. It was not our intent. I do want to convey that Marina Coast completely supports the district's ASR project. But I guess our main concern is this pipeline appears to be sized and in the same location as the proposal for Pure Water Monterey expansion. And as we submitted in our comments on that project, we believe it's oversized. It doesn't properly evaluate a number of things in especially in the context of an addendum. It doesn't look at the growth-inducing impacts. It doesn't look at cumulative impacts. We have a number of concerns based on its sizing and location that it really is an effort to skirt the CPUC and obviously would eliminate the need for the pipeline that you have helped fund a complete EIR on for what appears to be the same segment of pipeline. So I guess the main point that we want to make, and I know I only have 29 seconds, we submitted comments on this. We incorporate our prior comments on the Pure Water Monterey expansion. And we just want to make and we'd really just like you to delay the project and meet with us to address our concerns about conflicts between our pipeline and this proposed pipeline. And hopefully we can resolve those because we do want to support your ASR efforts. We just have significant concerns that we just need answers to. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I was about to give you another minute, but I better not. Anybody else out there?
Melody Crislock, please present your comment.
Go ahead.
Ms. Crislock?
Yes, I'm here. I would just hope that you would delay this and do meet with Marina. They have some legitimate concerns. And I'm glad to cede some of my time, a minute here, to Chip if he needs more time to finish what he was talking about. That's all I have to say.
No, we ain't giving away time tonight.
Okay. Well, please then, all right, I'll take all mine. So,
go ahead.
I want to know, is this pipeline critical to CalAm's desal plant? Because that was what the other pipeline was critical to it. And it looks like this one might be a workaround to get around that. And that's my concern. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Edwards, I see no other raised hands.
Okay. General Manager, can you answer those two questions? Or can CalAm?
Well, my visceral reaction is we could delay a month, but there is a construction start schedule that would be affected. That's one for either Chris or Ian to perhaps answer.
Ian, I've just unmuted you if you did want to respond.
Yeah, in terms of schedule, we're targeting to get this completed for the upcoming wet season for injection. So yes, schedule is important in order for us to get in construction and in service to help with the upcoming wet season. Was there another question? Was it? I think I heard it was it needed for desal?
Yes.
No.
Okay.
I mean, it helps. I will say that.
Well.
But it's not critical.
It helps or not helps?
It helps, but it's not critical.
Wait, I think you answered. I heard somebody say critical.
Right.
Chair Edwards, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Helps in redundancy.
And excuse me, I see that Chris Cook has raised his hand.
I thought he was talking to us.
That was Ian.
Okay, let's have the other one.
Mr. Cook, did you want to present a comment? Chris, I have unmuted you if you did want to present.
Okay. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Great. So I just wanted to comment on timeline and need. As director of operations, I was really the one who was pushing for this project, noticing, the limitations we are likely going to face with source waters from Carmel River moving forward, and not wanting to limit ASR injection as a factor of being able to, extract maximum amounts from the north. So working with John and other water management district staff, we realized the need for that. And then speaking to schedule, these projects take time. So what I don't want to do is get into a situation where, we have cutbacks with CDO milestones or reach the end of our, CDO period and not have this constructed, because as Ian mentioned, operationally, it just makes sense to have pipelines in two directions. It's much more straightforward, a lot more flexibility. You can inject, one day with a certain amount of ASR and still be extracting the amounts needed. So from an operations standpoint, it makes a lot of sense, especially with our future limitations on source waters. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Sorry, Chair Edwards, I'm attempting to go old school. I have my hand raised. It's Supervisor.
Okay. You got your hand raised. I'll let you go. I heard a motion out there, but I didn't hear a second yet. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thanks. So I just wanted to ask, I know that CalAm is going to be paying for this project, but I also know that the project will come back and be laid on the backs of the ratepayers. And I'm just wondering if we have any idea of what the cost of this project will be.
The capital cost of the project?
Yeah, how much you gonna run them? Run up?
That'll be it. Well, it won't run the district anything, but that'll be an Ian Brooks question.
Yeah, I would have to defer. I don't know if Tim O'Halloran's on the line. I believe our cost for
there is
$5 million, but I could refer to Tim.
Yeah, there is a Tim. Just don't know which Tim.
Yeah.
And if Tim's on phone, because I don't see a microphone, then you would need to press *9.
And if he's not, I'll just say, Dave, that I believe it's in the $5 million ballpark.
Chair Edwards?
Yes, go ahead, Vice Chair.
Well, it just seems like in order to make ASR and all of the water project function correctly, this is an important piece, which probably should have been included in the original ASR project, but I think it's important to move forward with it. That's why I want to make the motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion made.
I'd like to move we postpone this 1 month and try to work out.
We got a motion made. I'm looking for a second.
Are you doing a substitute motion?
I suppose.
Amending that?
A substitute motion to postpone this for 1 month.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have an amended motion to,
Under discussion.
under discussion. Go ahead.
So I don't have a problem. This is Director Potter. I don't necessarily have a problem with the continuance. I'd just like to make sure we get specific direction to staff on what it is this continuance is going to accomplish. Because there was a variety of different issues that came up. So George, if you'd incorporate some direction to staff in your motion, that would be helpful.
I'd like to move continuance to understand the cost. I've heard 6 million. The motion is to pin down the cost of the issue, understand what Marina Coast objections or concerns are, and then come back with recommendations.
What's the timeline? I want to know what the timeline is, George.
1 month.
1 month?
Postpone for 1 month.
Is that part of the motion?
Yes, that was my original motion to continue for 1 month.
And I second all of that.
Okay, any other on discussion on this? Any other?
Yes, Chair Edwards, this is Director Evans.
Go ahead, Director Evans.
We have heard from CalAm on the importance of staying on timeline. I know that we were not able to fully take advantage of a wet year. I think it was the year before last with ASR injection because of the new Monterey pipeline and some issues in the startup of that. I want to make sure that by delaying this 1 month, that we're not impacting our ability to take advantage of ASR fully this coming winter.
Chair Edwards?
Yes. Go ahead.
I think it's important. We are missing opportunities to fully use ASR, and I think it's unfortunate to delay this further.
Here's my comments on it. I like to try to work with other water districts, but it comes to a point where it's going to be hard because you don't throw something out at the 11th hour like this, and then email and then get on and ask for an extension. Now, I don't care if we have to call for a special meeting to approve this. I like to give you 2 weeks to get this done, to get with Marina Coastal, get this settled, get Cal-Am, so you all can sit down and settle this matter. The board has heard this twice. Basically, I'm ready to approve it, but I want to be open to hearing what they got to say of Marina Coastal. They're getting under my, I'm not going to go there, but give it 2 weeks. I don't care if we had to call a special meeting to approve this item.
Director Edwards.
Are you amending the motion to 2 weeks?
If I can.
Or is it a substitute?
Get there.
So the maker of the motion needs to be amenable to substituting that language in there, or you're offering a substitute motion to a substitute motion.
I was going to interject that we likely have a need for a special meeting because we need to kind of reach a final disposition on litigation with respect to Monterey One Water. And we could do both 10 days or 2 weeks.
If I could add, I was silent, Chair, on your suggestion for 2 weeks.
I know it.
but what I wanted to do was ask the general manager, what did a 2 week schedule look like? If he's looking at maybe 2 or 3 weeks anyway for another reason, and this gets loaded into that same schedule, I'm open to trying to understand what the Marina Coast issues are, and then going forward, however we go forward. So I'm amenable. I'm amenable to shortening to 1 month.
And my second will hold with that.
So what is the motion now?
Chair Edwards, if I could have an opportunity.
Okay, go ahead, Director Hoffman, then we're going to close this out.
Repeat the motion.
Yes, we will, after Director Hoffman.
Yeah, so we need to take a step back and recognize that this additional pipeline may or may not be used, because it's all the presumption that at some point that there'll be the dual need for injection and taking out and moving the water from seawater Monterey to the tanks. So it's not as if this is necessarily going to be impacting the operation. It could, but it's not that it will. And I think we need to be cognizant of this is a protective or an additional redundancy, but not necessarily critical in the long term for the operation of the project. Thank you.
Chair Edwards, if I may.
Get there, Director.
Thank you. I have sat in some of the committee meetings when this had come before us. If I remember correctly, and I hope the staff will correct me if I do not, that this was presented to us as maximizing ASR, so that the assertion that it might be used is incorrect, and that it would be used at points in the year when ASR and Pure Water Monterey were happening at the same time, if I remember correctly. Again, I defer to staff to correct me if I'm not.
Yeah, that's correct. Primarily you're normal to wet years when you can extend the diversions into the the later part of spring.
Okay.
So I would like to back up Molly's statement there. It seems like this is critical to maximize the use of ASR, and I don't want to see it delayed.
Well, I feel we need to delay it for 2 weeks to be good neighbors. 2 weeks to be good neighbors, to make sure all parties involved are notified and they get their questions answered. I'm willing to do that. Mr. Laredo, do we have a problem with that?
All I ask is that there be enough time for the general manager to bring back the answers to the questions you have. But it's your discretion to continue this to any date you select.
Okay.
Can we select a date?
Jim, you think you can find a date, or you can tell me 2 weeks, or give me a date certain so we can have that meeting and get this approved?
Well, I know that a couple of our, primarily our appointed directors have limits on their availability certain days of the week. I'd like to do something as soon as the end of next week, if possible. It could be something we do at 4 or 5 p.m. and get it over with.
Okay, give me a date, 23rd or 24th.
That's this week. We need to look at either 30th, 31st, or 1st. Nobody wants to do it on the 1st, so 30th or 31st.
31st.
Somebody said the 1st?
3 o'clock.
So the 31st at 3 o'clock?
That's one director.
Director Potter's available.
Thank you.
So I have misplaced my calendar. What was the date?
The 31st.
Yeah, now that FORA is dissolved, the Friday afternoon meeting slot is open.
So you said the 23rd, 2-3, at what time?
No, the
3-0.
No, I think I heard 31st.
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 Friday, July 31st, 3 o'clock.
That's the supervisor. I agree with the supervisor.
Okay, and Chip, please call me tomorrow.
Any other board directors? I got three right now. I'll go with 4 or 5.
Director will be available.
Okay.
I'm
you
good.
Okay. General manager, 3 o'clock, 31st.
3 o'clock.
Got a vote.
Mr. Chairman, you still need a vote on this.
Okay. Okay, we're going to vote on it. We went to the public. We got a date. We got a motion. And Arlene or Mr. Laredo, could you read back the motion and make sure it's right?
I believe the sense of the motion is that this item is being continued to the 31st for a special meeting at 3 p.m. To continue this matter and also to return with specific responses to the questions of cost and to respond to the Marina Coast environmental issues.
Okay. Roll call vote, please.
Could I get a quick clarification?
Go ahead there, Director Rob.
Is the Marina Coast issue only environmental issues? I didn't know. Oh, it's because of DIR? Is that the rate?
Yeah, it touches on all the key words.
Okay.
Piecemealing.
But the only relevant issues raised would be environmental, and it would be all the process and substantive questions that they've raised.
Thank you. Thank you.
And cost.
And cost, because the board asked the cost question.
Okay. Roll call vote, please.
Director Evans,
Aye.
Director Hoffman,
Mute.
Mr. Hoffman, you're muted.
I'm trying to unmute.
That you're.
You succeeded.
Director
Okay.
Hoffman,
Yes.
Director Potter,
Aye.
Director Byrne,
Aye.
Director Adams,
Aye.
Director Riley,
Aye.
Director Edwards.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Motion passes 7-0. Thank you all. Next item, General Manager.
Yes, this item is for board consideration of a letter to the State Water Resources Control Board to formally start the process to do two things. One is to ask them to waive any penalties for missing the September 30th, 2020 construction milestone. And the second is to encourage them to begin formal discussion with the applicants on an additional extension of the CDO beyond the December 31st, 2021 deadline, all of which are a result of the delays in construction and the self-evidence that milestones will be missed from here on out. It was suggested to me by one director, and I think it's a good suggestion, to include in the letter that's not in there yet, what the administrative delays were, and, you know, in the opinion of the district, who caused them. And that would be the Superior Court setting aside of the permits or, you know, any construction for the county permits, and the Coastal Commission delay in the local coastal development permit. And so that would be probably added to the bottom of the first page or into the second page, just as it was pointed out, you know, the letter will be in the record, but the memories might not be so good. And so it's better to just have it in the letter.
Okay, board members, any questions on this item?
To the GM, are other agencies going to join in this effort as far as you know, or is this our lone effort?
Well, I think us on behalf of the community needs to get it started.
I agree.
Obviously, all of the applicants are on the hook, and the applicants include the company. It includes the Regional Water Authority that's going to self-demise at the end of August. Includes the city of Pacific Grove because they were working on their local water project at the time. So I think in the end it would, and I believe possibly that Pebble Beach Company is one of the applicants.
Yes.
It'll fall to us in the company to lead the way.
Thank you.
You may note in the letter that I highlighted it took 22 months between the first attempt at an application and the hearing in July of 2016. So.
Okay, any other board questions before I take it out to the public?
I do have a question, Chair.
Go ahead, Director Evans.
I want to ask the general manager, since there's going to be language added to this letter, will the board see the final letter before it goes out?
If you don't reply all, yes.
Very well.
Okay.
but we're gonna put a time limit on it so we can get out.
No, I'll get a red line out tomorrow and a clean version of the same, just so you can see it.
Okay. Any other questions before I take it to the public? Okay, Arlene, take it to the public for 2 minutes, please.
Mr. Wilkins, do you have a comment?
No, I don't. I don't think my hand's raised, is it?
Yes, it is still raised, so.
I apologize. No, I do not have a comment.
Thank you, sir.
Ms. Chrislock, Melody Chrislock, do you have a comment?
No, I don't. It's not clear how to unraise your hand on this.
All right.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments? I see no more raised hands. Any other persons who want to comment, please raise your hand or dial *9 on your phone.
It's weird. You click on it, it doesn't go away.
Chair Edwards, I see no other comments.
All right, thank you. Back to the board.
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
I got a motion from
I'd like to second.
Okay, motion by the vice chair and second by Director Evans. Discussion? Comment?
Is the motion to include the new draft, the new?
Yes, to include the new language.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, comments? Any comments? Just comments from the chair. I want to thank Water Supply Committee for bringing these issues up. I listen to their meetings and I hear them talking about it, and I believe in action. So now we're taking action. I hope this gives the community a advance. And I like the other language that we're going to put in and tell the state why. So they can start discussing it among themselves, and it shouldn't take them too long with this. But it's a start. It's a good start. And I want to thank the board for the support on it. That's all I have. Roll call, please.
Director Hoffman,
Yes.
Director Adams,
Aye.
Director Potter,
Aye.
Director Riley,
Aye.
Director Evans,
Aye.
Director Byrne,
Yes.
Director Edwards.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
7-0. Thank you. And if any information, staff items or reports anybody want to talk about?
I just wanted to highlight that we did include as item number 17, the bill tracking from the legislative committee, because I know other directors have expressed an interest.
Thank you. If there are no other items, I'm closing this meeting in honor of our two past mayors that passed away, Mayor Ralph Rubio and Mayor Joe Gunther. Meeting adjourned.